Want to events for your own football team. My name is Joe Daniel, and since 2009, I've run a website that's helping football coaches become better, how to be better at teaching your kids, how to be better at motivating, and how to be better with schemes and drills and everything that goes into coaching a football team. The message is always the same. Doesn't matter if it's offense, defense, or special teams. We keep it simple. We want to build our players' confidence because we know that confident kids aren't busy thinking and worrying. They're just playing and reacting. So confident kids will play fast. Fast kids win more football games. I mean, they just do. There's no way around it. Speed kills. We all know that. So the Miami 4-3 defense is a defense that I found fits that philosophy perfectly. I even wrote a book on it called Installing Football's 4-3 Over Defensive Front. And that book has been used by 636 coaching staffs around the world. It's 5 different continents, all over, every level, youth, middle school, high school, college, really been used in a lot of different places. So I know this is a defense that can work at any level. I have a YouTube video on the 4-3 defense that's been watched 43,642 times as of the recording of this video as well. So this has been out there and put out there and tested by a lot of different coaches. Now you might be wondering why the 4-3 defense. There's so many other defenses that you could be running. What makes it special? Well, it's not that this is the only defense that works. That's not the case at all. Any good, sound defensive scheme that you understand and can translate to your kids is going to work for you. But I'm all about simplicity. And I think that the Miami 4-3 defense, when run correctly, fits the bill. Jimmy Johnson developed this defense with the Miami Hurricanes in the 1980s. And that was a team loaded with speed. And so Coach Johnson's whole goal was, how can we get this speed out there and get this speed running and not thinking and using it? And of course, had a ton of success there, won national championships, and then went on and used the defense with the Dallas Cowboys and winning Super Bowls there as well. So we know that this defense works at those levels at the very least. And it was originally designed specifically to stop Barry Switzer's Oklahoma wishbone option teams that were so dominant at the time. So this is probably the best defense for stopping any form of option attack because that's how it was originally designed, was to stop the wishbone option. But here's what's kept this defense around for so long. It stays around because this defense can adapt and adjust to literally stop anything, no matter what the offense is going to throw at you. If you stick to the principles of the 4-3 defense, you're going to be ready for it. The overfront is the base for the Miami 4-3 defense, and that's what we're going to focus on in this video. And coaches love how incredibly adaptable and versatile this defensive front is for them. That's why they continue to run it year after year, even though offenses have continued to evolve at a breakneck pace. I mean, we know that in any given season, you can see back-to-back weeks, a wing T, a double wing, a spread option, air raid. There's so many different things that we can see. Offenses are continuing to evolve and change, and defenses have to keep up. But the great thing is that 4-3 defense coaches have continued to run this defense year after year and stayed step for step with all of those offensive changes simply by staying true to the principles of the 4-3 defense. Those same principles that were developed at the U 30 years ago. They don't have to change. It will adjust to literally anything. So I've put this 3-video series together to help teach you those principles and to show you the ins and outs of the Miami 4-3 defense to truly understand how this defense works. And more important than that, I want you to see why this defense can work for your football team as well. I want to show you how to develop a dominant football defense that is ready to stop anything that the opposing offensive coordinators can throw at you. I want you to toss out that flavor of the week defense where you're constantly having to make changes and adjustments every week depending on who's coming to play you that week. Follow these sound defensive principles week in, week out, season after season. Give consistent instruction to your players so that they can be confident. Remember that confident kids play faster. Faster kids win more games. And that's what it's all about. So let's not delay anymore. Let's go to the board and start looking at the Miami 4-3 defense. So here we're looking at the base alignment of the 4-3 defense in the over front. And we're going to walk through each position and talk about exactly who we want to have in those positions and why they're aligned where they're at, what their responsibilities are. So we're going to start on our defensive line. Your best defensive lineman is going to be this guy right here. That's your 3 technique. Your shaded outside of the guard defensive tackle on the strong side. That's the one true legitimate defensive lineman that you need to have. A lot of coaches think we can't run a 4-3 because we don't have 4 defensive linemen. Well, the Miami 4-3 defense is all about getting speed on the field. And so those big defensive linemen that you may be thinking about, we're going to move those guys to offense. Okay, they're not going to be here. We're going to have linebacker type speed at a lot of these positions. So the only true defensive lineman that we need to have is that one 3 technique defensive tackle. If we've got another one, we'll put him here at the nose. But if we don't, we've used wrestler type kids. We've used shooter, real quick kids at that nose position. We've done a lot of different things there. He doesn't have to be a dominant defensive tackle. You do want this guy, your 3 technique, strong tackle, to be a guy who can take on a double team. He doesn't have to beat every double team. He doesn't have to be all world. He needs to be able to beat a one-on-one block and force the defense to double team him so that our linebackers can run a little bit freely. Again, our nose is our next best defensive lineman, or if we don't have one, we can just put a quick kid down there and let him cause havoc. Our 2 defensive ends are usually going to be moved up from linebacker or even from safety. They're not going to be taking on double teams. In fact, they're often going to be tilted out here, and so they're going to be in an outside shade. They're going to be attacking, bending, spilling everything. They are very similar, and in fact, all 4 of our defensive line positions all align in an outside shade so that they don't have to learn different positions. You can rotate them through here. So these guys are outside shade attacking hard, always looking to bend and spill, which we'll talk about, always trying to force the ball to bounce to the outside where our safeties or corners will have the force on the play most of the time. So when we're talking about these guys, we're going to have speed on the field at those defensive end spots. The nose can be a smaller guy. We got 1 defensive tackle. Our linebackers, we've got 1 true linebacker. Our Mike linebacker is that plugger. He's that big guy, that gap, tackle to tackle type of linebacker. And he's a 2-gap linebacker. So what that means for him, he's going to be keying on the fullback in an I formation. We start from an I formation, even though you may not see it that much. We're starting to see more of it again, but really the foundation of the defense is taught here, and then we move into teaching spread, and it adapts to everything pretty easily. So our Mike linebacker is actually a 2-gap linebacker. He's going to be reading the backfield flow. If he gets flow strong, then he's going to fill the strong A gap. If he gets hard flow weak, which means inside flow that we'll talk about in a later video, then he's going to be taking the weak side B gap. So he's a 2-gap Mike linebacker. This may seem complicated to you, but it's very natural. Your guys want to chase the football, right? So if the football goes weak, he fills the first gap weak. If it goes strong, he fills the first gap strong. So he's A gap strong, B gap weak, but it's really just fill the first open door to that side or fill the first open window. Our Sam linebacker on run to him is going to have C gap strong. If the run goes weak, then he'll have cutback in the A gap since our Mike backer is going to B gap. For the will linebacker, if flow goes away from him, he's going to have that B gap weak. And if flow comes to his side, we'll have him fit off the butt of the defensive end and just make sure that the ball bounces to the outside. If he sees daylight on the inside, he'll be able to come in and help to fill up that and force it to bounce to the safeties. Now, we're running a base quarters coverage out of this. And so our safeties are going to be the force players when we've only got 1 receiver out here. So our safeties will be the force player. And if you've seen videos that I've done before, I talk about the umbrella principle. Well, the 4-3 fits our umbrella principle. We've got all of our guys in the box, spilling the football, forcing the football to go to the outside. So when we get a run in the box, we're going to force the ball to continue to bounce to the outside, where our safeties will be the guys closing it off. If you were a cover 2, your corners would be the guys forcing. We can also do some other different things with our defense with some different checks that we do. But it fits our umbrella principle that everybody under the umbrella is going to be spilling the football, and we've got our guys outside the umbrella forcing it. It's a little bit different on the alley. So it'd be like the will linebacker being the alley player, in this case, and so it's a little bit different than what you normally see there. We run a base quarters coverage, as I said, so our corners, it's going to depend on what they're doing, but most of the time their job for us is to stay in coverage. When we talk about your best players and your worst players, I think that your best defensive lineman is going to be right there at your 3-technique tackle. He is by far your best defensive lineman. He's the guy that's going to be needs to be the guy that takes on double teams. Your one true linebacker, your plugger, your traditional linebacker, your Dick Butkus type of guy, that's gap to gap and just tough and hard-nosed. He's your Mike linebacker. He's the only true linebacker that you need. In fact, most of our other linebacker type of kids are going to end up playing these defensive end spots while we're going to use what would have been faster safeties at the Will and the Sam. The reason that we can do that is because our Mike is going to be taking on most of the inside ISO blocks, the hard downhill lead blocks. And so we don't have to worry about our Will and our Sam taking those on. They can be a little bit smaller guys. Finally, your two best open field speed football players, guys who can tackle in space, still cover a little bit, maybe do some man coverage if you need it. That's your free safety and your strong safety. These are dynamic football players who can make things happen. I think these are not necessarily your biggest guys. They're not guys that you'd want at defensive line. They're not guys maybe you want at that Mike backer. But of the guys who can run, they're your best football players, your best tacklers in space. They've got a little knowledge of the game. Because of that, we can be a little bit less concerned about our corners. We're going to be able to put pressure on up front. Our corner's job is going to be to stay over top a lot of the time. So they don't have to be phenomenal athletes out there. We can hide some guys in corner. We can hide some guys at our defensive end spots who maybe aren't football brilliant. They don't necessarily know everything that's going on out there, but we can just let them put their hand down and use their athleticism and run out there. And then if you've got to hide somebody, it depends on what you're seeing and what the opponent is running at you, but it's possible that you could maybe hide somebody at that will backer if you had to for a couple plays. If teams are running heavy strong against you, that's somewhere that you could maybe tuck somebody away if you've got your minimum players and things like that you need to get out there. So this is the Miami 4-3 over front in its basics. We've got our 3-technique tackle, your best defensive lineman. We've got our 1-technique shaded nose, and these guys are going to be tilted slightly. We've got our defensive ends on the outside, a 9-technique and a 5-technique, meaning the outside shade of the tight end and outside shade of the tackle. You could flip those guys or you don't have to flip them. They're going to be tilted. I like to really tilt those guys hard so that they're attacking hard down inside. And they're going to be some athletic guys, but they don't have to be traditional defensive linemen, and really probably shouldn't be. Your true linebacker is that 2-gap Mike backer. Easy to teach. It's instinctive for him. He'll be great at it, but that's your one true linebacker. We've got a Will and a Sam that might be a little more like safeties than you'd be used to putting at the linebacker spot because they're not going to take on those lead blocks with our 2-gap Mike backer. We've got some really good football players at our free safety and strong safety. They're going to be our force players in our quarters coverage, and then our corners always going to be staying in coverage, making sure that we don't get embarrassed by a long pass because these guys fall asleep. So now you've got a pretty good idea of how to set up your 4-3 defense. And in video 2 of this 3-video series, I'm going to show you how to teach the run fits. And run fits mean where do your guys go based on what they see. We're going to talk about how to get your players into the right place on every snap to stop any rushing attack, no matter what the design or the style. It's all going to fit in the basic principles of our 4-3 defense. We're going to talk about how your defensive linemen and your linebackers are going to read and react on every step, on every snap. And, of course, there's Ray Lewis, who played in this defense with the Miami Hurricanes. A pretty good linebacker and one of many really good defensive players, linebackers and defensive linemen. Of course, Miami's success was in part due to the fact that they recruited a lot of really, really talented guys and then didn't make them worry too much or think too much and just go out there and play fast and use the speed that they had available to them. So that video is going to show up in your inbox in a couple of days. Be on the lookout for it. Before that, though, I want you to tell me a little bit about your defense. What was the biggest problem that your defense had last season? What is it that when you just could not get the big stop you needed, or you couldn't keep a team out of the end zone, or you couldn't get them off the field? What was the problem? Why didn't your defense work when you needed to? Post that in the comments below here, and I'll be reading them all and I'll be responding to them as well. So I look forward to seeing what you post down there in the comments. Just scroll down there, post what wasn't working for your defense in the comments below, and then keep an eye out for the next video that's going to be delivered to your email inbox. Don't wait though, because these videos, they're only going to be available for a couple of weeks. I'm not leaving them up forever. They'll be available for about 2 weeks from the time that this video was first released, and then I'll be taking them down. So go ahead and watch those videos as they come out, take notes, and be ready to learn from these. I guarantee if you take the time to watch all 3 of these 4-3 defense videos that I'm giving to you for free, and you really focus in on them, that you really try to learn and approach it with an open mind and not say, well, it's not what we do, so it doesn't matter. Approach it with an open mind. I guarantee, even if you decide not to run the 4-3 defense, you will find tips in these videos that are going to help you become a better football coach and are going to make your defense better.